Welcome back. The intent of the next hour is just an open discussion, questions and discussion about flying IFR or VFR with NorCal, doesn't matter. The whole idea is just to open up some communications between people here and the controller, and so it's kind of open-ended. If we run out of discussion, then I have a scenario I'm going to throw up just so we can fill out the rest of the time that involves an arrival at Lincoln and VFR mixed with IFR traffic. But if we don't get there, that's fine. But I just want to take this opportunity now with Casey and myself and any other people who want to discuss whatever's on your mind. And we have one question here, it's just begging to answer, so to be asked. So go ahead.
Okay. So
speak up.
I'm on a VFR flight following from south going to McAllen. And if you see McAllen runway 50 straight line, it's exactly between Maythorn and Executive Address, which is a straight line.
Yeah, you're splitting the deltas.
Exactly, yep. Yeah. So I'm going through that at 2,000 feet. It's in the night. I see McAllen airspace and I call the tower. Yeah, I see that space. Clear of traffic. They say, okay, stop VFR, change to address frequency. I descend down to 1,700, entering near to the class Charlie.
Okay.
And I see Air 1 departing, and there's another 2 helicopter traffic. It happened like a couple of days ago. So right now, 1,600 is the base of Charlie.
Yep.
Can I be at 1,700? Because I want to avoid these 2 helicopters.
So you were on VFR flight following and they terminated?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is one of those gray areas. I wouldn't say anything to you because I knew you were there. This is me working the radar sector. I knew you were there before I got rid of you. So there's competing pressures, right? There is the traffic, there's the airspace, but then there's the need for us to get you over to the CTAF frequency, right? So you have traffic between you and the airport. If I've got the time, I'm going to tell you about that traffic. If I'm buried, I can't kind of do it if I'm really busy. But if I see something out there, I'm going to tell you about it. And then if you just kind of click the Charlie, nobody's going to come looking for you. That's what I'm going to say. Nobody's going to come looking for you. Like, I knew you were there, and if I wanted you to stay out of the Charlie, I should have told you. You know, in the Delta, like if you're coming from the south in the Delta, if the towers are open, then it's my responsibility. I was just telling one of the gentlemen over here, it's my responsibility to tell that tower that you're out there if you're going to fly in their airspace because you're talking to me. So we do that, going back to that point out scenario where I tell them that you're out there, we would do that. And we can do that all automated behind the scenes with just some keyboard entries. So gray area, but I would say that you're totally fine. Yeah.
Unless the physio comes looking for you, then maybe not.
Now, here's a separate scenario. If I discontinue flight following thinking you're going to go into McClellan Airport and then you go right here and loiter at 2,000, we've got problems. Because I thought you were going into McClellan. I would have kept you on my frequency. So if you're going to change your plan, call us back. Okay. But if you're just going to do what you said you're going to do and descend into the airport, then it's all good.
What are you talking about?
A place for experimental aircraft, first flight test, phase 1 flight testing. Okay. And it's just, a lot of people go right over the field and just burn holes, burn gas, check out exactly. And a lot of people don't know about the slammer and the 4,000 foot restriction over the field. And so they'll be somewhere in that area. That might be a lot of the traffic you're seeing up in that area. Okay. And if the word got out that 3,000 would be a much better air altitude to do your phase 1 flight testing over the field, because if something lets go, it's, you just built this airplane and you're doing the first flight on it. Right. That would be a better, and that word really I don't think has gotten out as much as it could get out. Yeah. So that's the statement part. Second one is flying formation. You've got 2 or 3 airplanes. What do you see on your scope? I mean, are we just killing our transponder, or do you want us to turn our ADSB off also, or 2 or 3 in formation?
The technical answer is whoever on top or whoever the lead is supposed to be on the transponder code, and everybody else is supposed to be squawking standby.
Okay.
I still see a primary radar target, so it just looks like a little diamond kind of, and but I will not get constant conflict alerts when you turn your transponder off.
Just the transponder.
So or I'm sorry, not turn it off, turn it to standby rather. I don't know, I don't really know what standby does behind the scenes. I'm not a pilot, but
You're not getting a notification or collision alerts or any.
it's CA, and it pops up and it does this constant alarm, beep, 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 beep. And so we don't get that. So like it's most common with military aircraft, and we'll just say like, hey, you have -2 squawk standby, and then all I see is it just looks like a little diamond that's kind of trailing behind. But then when they get really snug, I see one target.
Okay.
So.
Dubs.
Another question about the traffic coming over Lincoln and then landing at Sacramento.
Yep.
If I take off 15 and I'm gonna go to Reading or to Willows or something, Red Bluff, I usually turn and to avoid the Beale TFR until I can talk to somebody. I turned and I head west-northwest. I'm heading that way.
Okay. Like kind of towards the Buttes-ish?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go right, I'm gonna be in a conflict with anybody coming over Lincoln, turning final and heading. What are their altitudes as they come over and turn final that I want to avoid? I stay low just in case. I'll stay down at 1,600 feet, or I don't wanna start climbing till I'm past the extended center line for Sacramento, because I don't know where those guys are. So I just stay low until I can talk to somebody. What if they're coming over at 4,000 feet over Lincoln, usually 4,000 to 4,500 feet, I thought, and then they go and they turn left. How far are they descending, and when they turn final, what's their altitude? What do I got to avoid? I want to get out of
You're talking about for Sacramento International specifically? Okay, so I'll just use the computer cursor so it doesn't start going into, so they're descending. So this is what I'm going to talk about, the scenario that I'm going to talk about right now is if Sacramento International is on runway 17 configuration. So what they're supposed to do is they're just supposed to descend a 10-co at 4, and then they're supposed to, this little arrow that you see right there, they're supposed to depart 10-co 255 heading if they don't get any other instructions from us. And they'll stay at 4. Now, if it's a beautiful day like today, they're going to be set up for a visual approach. And if I see some traffic out there, I'm not going to get tangled up with it. So I'm going to avoid the traffic, of course. If they're going to be on an instrument approach, let's say they're doing an ILS, they're going to be going to this fix right here and descending to, for 17 right, they're going to be descending to 1800. For 17 left, they're going to be descending to 1900. So somewhere in between 10-co and that fix, they're descending. They're just on like a kind of a continuous descent profile. And it's just pretty much if you drew a straight line from there to there.
Where's Lincoln on that?
Lincoln is right here.
Okay.
So this is the Lincoln runway 15 final. These dotted lines right here. If you can see it, if I need to bust out the red laser, then I will. So yeah, so it's I don't know if I did a very good job of explaining exactly where everything is, but this is Sacramento International. This is Sacramento Executive right there. That's Mather, that's McClellan, Lincoln. This little circle right here is Auburn, Nevada County, Beale, Marysville, Oroville is way up here. So you can see like Oroville's right on the edge of our airspace. Same thing with like Lincoln and Auburn, they're right on the edge of 2 different sectors. So to answer your question specifically, you're making a right turn out, kind of going up towards the Sutter Buttes. If you stay like at or below 3, and then if your intention is to call us ASAP for flight following, then no problem. If you don't want to call us for flight following, then I would say that you stay at or below 3 until you're, 3-4 miles north of Lincoln, and then do what you do. Obviously clear the Charlie for up to 4,100, I believe, if you're going to go over the top of that one. And then, if for these arrivals that are descending in this direction or whatever, we'll see you and avoid you, So it's just kind of, there's so many different scenarios that happen. It's tough to give you specifics, right? I might have a T-38 that departs Beale wanting to do practice approaches at Sacramento National, and they don't want to climb above 2. It's totally legal. It's allowed.
300 knots.
Yes, exactly. So, so it's just for these arrivals specifically, Generally, they're going to go from 4. If I've got nothing out there, I'll go all the way down to 2. If I've got something out there, it's just all scenario dependent. If I see something out in here, the Reach Med helicopters love to cut under the outer Charlie shelf at like 1,400, 1,500. So I'm going to stay at something 1,000 feet above that, depending on what their altitude is. They're going to be below the Charlie. And then I might square to final, depending on how high I need to leave them to give them more space to descend. It's all just kind of a constant, okay, we're going to do this. Well, the aircraft's turning back into me now. Plan B, plan C, So you're going through different plans, different iterations of your plan.
Also, even if I'm going a short distance, I feel it's important and valuable to you for me to get on flight following so that you know what my intentions are and what I am, who I am, what I am, where I'm going. Even if I'm flying from Lincoln down to McClellan for fuel, which is a 10-minute, 8-minute flight, is that important to you, or is that a pain in the ass to you?
Lincoln to McClellan it's kind of like, I'm going to tell you hi and then I'm going to tell you bye.
Which is okay, but I told you what I'm doing and you know.
Yeah.
That way you know.
Yeah. You might say, hey, this is me and I'm doing this. I might not even give you a beacon code. I'll just tell you like, hey, there's I'm not observing any traffic, or I want to give you a beacon code because you're in the hornet's nest. It just really depends. Honestly, if the frequency down here would be 27.4, like this is one of the things that's kind of interesting for us as we get, someone will fly in the morning and they'll be on, I was talking to the gentleman earlier, he was on 27.4 coming into Lincoln, right? Well, let's say later on that day he's going to the north. Well, he's going to call 27.4 and we're going to say, hey, call 25.4, because now the frequencies are all split off, because like I was saying earlier, now it's busy and we've got other stuff going on. And so, these airports are right next to these airspace. So you'll get this thing where, the approach chart says 25.4 and you're calling 25.4 asking if there's any, but they're not really necessarily looking at that airspace because they're dealing with all the stuff up here. So it's kind of one of those things. And it's like, how would you know any other way? You just kind of, I don't know if you guys even have access to any of these type of video maps, but the sector of the airspace boundary right there with the frequency change, or the differing frequencies, kind of complicates things as well, because you're not going to see 27.4. If you're just looking at a Lincoln chart supplement and an approach plate, you're only going to see 25.4. So I've heard 4 flight's pretty cool and shows you frequencies and all. I don't have any experience with it, but maybe it'll tell you that 27.4 is down here. So that's an additional complicating factor. But more than likely, if you just said, hey, I want to go to McClellan, I'll be like, hey, you can just call the tower because there's nothing out there. Or if there's something out there and I needed to altitude restrict you or give you a turn or something like that, we're not going to tell you to go kick rocks. We're going to help you out. So now, if you're doing a longer flight, or you want to do something that kind of puts you over even if you're going to be above the Charlie, you want to do something like, I don't know, Napa or something, let's say, go over the top of Charlie, then it's super helpful to call us, because we know it. If you're on a 1200 code, we're just guessing. I see you level off at 4500 through here, and I restrict an arrival at 6. I'm just hoping that you don't climb. Because I'm like, okay, well, yeah, he's at 4,500 and it all looks good. But if you decide 6,500 is a better altitude for you, now I'm scrambling. So if you call me going over the top of this, especially if I put you over the top of the airport, because that's shockingly enough the best place for you to be, then I know exactly what you're doing. So it is very beneficial. And if you can see these arrivals that come into this area, they stop at or above 5 there and then at 4 there. So if I know what you're doing, I can either push that arrival down to get underneath you, or I can keep them high above you. It definitely is beneficial in certain scenarios. But yeah, I've definitely had a couple that were like exec to McClellan Airport, and I'm like, okay, have a good day. So, but I get it. There's a lot of they want to, tall buildings, something like that. They want to go out, they want to go look. So, and it looks cool. So I don't blame them, but I don't, generally speaking, between there and there, I don't have a lot for them. Especially now, I don't know how many people have been flying around the airspace now, but with the CAL FIRE doing their practice. They have McClellan, they have contracted with McClellan Tower to be open. And there's a tower frequency over there now. So I'm getting you over onto their frequency, especially if it's just a short hop like that. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. If I did a bad job, just let me know and I'll keep going. Sir?
Are you seeing the drones that fly out of Beale on your screen? And
I haven't seen them in a very long time, but when they were flying, we were talking to them.
the drones?
Yeah, you're talking about the big ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would call us, they would talk to us.
And you'll call them out to us if we're.
That's when that TFR kind of comes into effect. Nobody's in this airspace when they're flying.
But if they're outside of that TFR,
Their flight path keeps them inside the TFR until they're in Class A airspace in the flight levels.
are the ropers exempt from these speed limits? Because I've seen them pick them up on ADSB way over 300 knots at 2,500 feet.
I don't know, but I've been told that the flight characteristics of a T-38, they need to go a little faster. If you, they love to come do practice approaches at Mather, you need to, if they're following a Diamond Star out here doing a practice approach, you need to put them over Placerville because, if you say reduce to your slowest practical speed, that might be 250 knots across the ground. Yeah, and so it's like, okay, we're going to plan B, Diamond Star, you're getting broke off the approach, and I'm just gonna, I'm not trying to swim against the current, right? So it's like, if I just let this T-38 do their approach, and I spin the Diamond Star, by the time they're done with their spin, the T-38 is doing touch and goes in the tower pattern. So it's, you kind of, these are all things that you learn in training. So I don't, to answer your specific question, I have no idea what their rules and regulations are. I just know that when they come over, they're going fast, and that it's like, this is the scenario that you are given, figure it out.
Okay, I have a basic question on requesting a VFR flight following.
Okay.
So when I depart from Metal or LinkedIn, I call NorCal, I just tell them quick request, call sign request, they come back, then I tell my position, I tell my make and model, all those.
Yeah.
But when I depart from OPE, exactly on 125.10, that control doesn't like me asking for a request. He always wants me to say everything at once after departing. It's been multiple times, just that one control. I can literally recognize his voice.
Yeah.
And he wants me to always say at the one go, he just wants me to say everything.
He wants everything in one verse.
One go.
Yeah. You are correct. You're supposed to, I'm pretty sure the AIM or CFR says, hey, NorCal, this is who I am, and I'll get back to you when I can. The reason for that is, let's say that I am working all this airspace, right? You can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5, 6. I can be running all kinds of approaches at the same time. If you say November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm flying a blue Skyhawk, and I'm gonna go to this place, and I'm at dude, I need to be turning final. I need to be clearing people for approaches. Just say November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 NorCal, and I'll get back to you when I can. And if we ignore you, then keep pestering us. But the same way, November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is controller preference, and technically that controller is wrong. Yeah, technically speaking, they're wrong. And we've gotten multiple things that have said that we shouldn't be telling pilots off for giving us the short version. It's come across our thing multiple times. Hey, reminder, they're supposed to keep it short and sweet on initial contact. And then you can get all their information. When you're busy, it kind of, I'm not gonna lie to you, when you're busy, it kind of sucks when you go okay, give me your, when I acknowledge you, okay, destination and type aircraft. I might be busy, so I might say destination and type aircraft only. I want you to be November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Modesto Skyhawk. That's it. I don't want you to be I'm going to go here, then there, then here, then there. I want you to keep it short and sweet. And hopefully you can hear the controller talking a ton. And when the controller's talking a ton, the best advice that I have for anybody is keep it short and sweet. And so you're right. So good job. Yeah.
Follow up on that.
Yep.
I listen in, and if you're not busy, I will do the whole thing. You know, I'm saying the destination, altitude, what kind of airplane I am, and the sequence of events that you're looking for. I know there's a sequence of events that help you. If I hear a lot of chatter, I'll just say, you know, contact NorCal with my tail number. However, you may be listening in on multiple frequencies that I don't hear. So how many frequencies are you on at the time that we're talking to you on 125.4?
It just depends on the time of the day. So
You might be working multiple sectors.
right now, I guarantee you it's a Saturday and it's nice outside. 125.4 is Elkhorn. 125.4 is combined with Butte sector, which is 2045. And that's the only, they're working the 2 VHF frequencies and the 2 UHF frequencies, and that's it. So I would say it's hard to say. I would say continue to keep it short and sweet if I'm going to be technical about it. And then we'll get to you when we can, because again, there might be stuff that you don't hear. Generally speaking, that happens early in the morning, overnight, and in the evening. And it's all traffic dependent. It's all traffic dependent. If we just for some reason have a bunch of aircraft out there at 9 p.m., we're not combining sectors down. People are getting overtime. People are getting held over there. It's just, it is the way that it is. So
I called, you didn't even get back, and I knew you were busy. I just ignored it. Went on my way.
yeah, but you'll hear us when it's our turn to talk, but you won't hear the replies that we receive. And a lot of times, like the thing that gets the only time that I've ever really been kind of frustrated by that is I just gave this VFR aircraft an IFR clearance, and it wasn't on your frequency, so you started talking over their readback, and I got to verify all that information. Okay, so it's like, so especially if you're an IFR rated pilot, you know that you're going to be reading back that clearance, and especially if they're VFR to IFR airborne, clearance delivery makes it a little bit easier, because we're doing all that on either a frequency or a phone number that is not actively controlling air traffic. But like when it's VFR to IFR airborne, now I'm listening for that whole readback, depending on what I gave them. So that's the only time in recent history that I can be like, if this guy was listening, he would have at least heard me give an IFR clearance, and he would have known to give me 10, 20 seconds. So that it doesn't happen all the time, but I would say just continue to keep it short and sweet. Yeah. I'm just trying to give you real life situations.
Yeah. So this is an EAA kind of question. I've been flying long enough to remember that you were always supposed to include the word experimental, at least in your initial call up. And then, because experimentals could be anything from 300 knots to 3 knots, then just say what it is, like it's a Cessna or it's an RV or something like that. Have those, and what I generally do is just use experimental RV and the number first, and then just either give the end number. Or is there a kind of preferred protocol for experimentals of how much radio time to put in the call up and the repeated interactions to identify yourself?
So with experimental specifically, we just type in EXPR for the data block type, and I think it defaults you to like a category F wake recat. If you are an extremely fast experimental, you might want to put that out there, like. No, I mean, if you told me I'm an experimental RV10, or if I'm an experimental RV, the way I do it is I come back and I say, what model RV? And you say I'm an RV10. And if I type in RV10, it recognizes that. But if you're some kind of experimental that's like a one-off, then we can put in EXPR and our system recognizes it. But if your one-off experimental has like 14 jet engines on it and you can go really fast, then we probably want to know. So, because it's just, and you might be out of the way and not any kind of an issue, but it would be nice to know, you get, if you're going to be going, if you're faster than what maybe, let's say, if you think that you're probably a pretty fast aircraft, you could just be like, hey, just for your information. It's just kind of one of those things that's nice to know. Hey, for your information, my cruise speed is 260 knots or whatever. Okay, cool. That's nice.
The other frequency thing is if you're southbound, like LA's airspace in an experimental, you get handed off a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
With each handoff, you do the experimental introduction of yourself, or you just use your end number and.
I mean, by that, once you're en route and let's say you are doing 260 knot experimental or whatever, by that time I'm seeing that ground speed. And if I haven't deduced that you're a fast experimental, it's my fault at that point. But on initial call up, it's kind of nice information to know. And we used to have like the data block used to be like EXPA for aircraft that can do speed between this and this speed, and EXPB and EXPC. We don't really do that anymore. We just kind of do EXPR, and it's kind of generally all encompassing. But I would and all that, when I say EXPA, B, C, all that had to do with the speed of the aircraft. And so now you have to get into this back and forth on like, and I don't remember if it was based on maximum speed or what. And I just don't really remember it. It's just kind of one of those things that EXPR works just fine. The system recognizes it, and it hasn't really ever been a problem. So, yeah.
So if I'm talking to you and say southbound, and you hand me off to Oakland, the data block, he has to recreate my data block?
No,
It transfers over.
Yes. So assuming you called me and told me you were going to, I'm going from Lincoln to Reading. I'm going to put you in the system as Reading. What it'll do is, I was talking to one of the other gentlemen. So we have. I gotta back up before I answer the whole thing. We have two different banks of transponder codes. We have a bank of transponder codes that's for in-house only. In-house means you're just going to stay within NorCal TRACON's airspace and our towers. So usually those beacon codes start with like 03 or 53. If you fly around here a lot, you'll hear those. Now, if you tell me you're going from Lincoln to Reading, I'm going to put you in Lincoln Reading, and it's going to generate what's called a NAS code, a National Airspace System code. That one will automate outside of NorCal TRACON. So it will automate to center. It should automate, like if you're telling me you're going to Coeur d'Alene, it should automate all the way through whoever you're going to talk to between here and there. So all the towers, all the TRACONs, all the centers, again, should. I haven't heard of there being any problems with it. And center may reassign you a beacon code. I don't really know how frequent that happens. But it may happen. You may get reassigned a beacon code somewhere down the road. But yes, they do not need to rebuild your data block or anything like that. They may ask you center. So the thing I will say is TRACON, you may say like, hey, I'm going from Lincoln to Reading, but first I'm going to go over Chesterfield and then over. I'm limited. I can put you're leaving Lincoln and you're going to Reading. Center is going to want to type in a whole entire VFR flight plan for you. So they're going to say, okay, this guy's going from Lincoln over Chester, then over to Reading, then maybe to Chico. They're going to type in the whole thing. We can do from to. So we're limited. And so I don't know if when we just do on the TRACON, when we say from to, I don't know if the center follows up and be like, hey, give me your whole VFR flight plan now, or they say that that's adequate. I don't know.
A week ago, I came up from Apple Valley.
Okay.
And, started out with Joshua.
Okay.
And then went to Bakersfield, and then to Oakland, and then NorCal. And every change I just reported altitude and tail number.
Yeah, we're supposed. Well, we don't technically have to anymore. We got some new system where it used to be that if the aircraft was coming from outside of our facility, we had to verify the mode C altitude again. I don't think we are absolutely required to do that anymore. But you know what? It's such a carryover but that we almost all do it. Say your altitude, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Quick VFR question. Flying VFR from, say, like Fresno, Sacramento, particular altitude. Do you guys prefer, like, I'll usually pick a descent point because I fly Bonanza, so I gotta plan for that. Do you prefer a call out when you're leaving a particular altitude in VFR? Regardless?
Yeah, it is appreciated, and if I'm working the sector, you're almost always going to hear me say advice prior to changing altitudes, and I want to know. Because you may be crisscrossing with traffic or descending or climbing into another sector's airspace. That's another one too. And now you need to be on their frequency because they have traffic that I'm not looking at. I say that as a precautionary measure, and the reason that I say it is basically just to save me from having to be like, traffic alert, because you descended into something. And I think you guys see a lot of that with all the new advances and stuff. You guys see the traffic out there, so hopefully not descending into it. But I like to know, mostly so I can kind of scan out in front of you and see if there's traffic. And also, hey, maybe you're getting into somebody else's airspace. A lot of the times, like that map that I had pulled up, you'll see the guys coming from the mountains. They're coming from Truckee or Tahoe. They're at 10.5, 11.5 or whatever. Now, as soon as they get on the other side of the mountains, they want to start down, right? Well, you immediately go from Paradise's airspace, which is 10,000 to 19,000. Now you're in the lower sector's airspace, Expo. So and as soon as you hit anywhere between 9,500 and below, I want you on their frequency, because it ends up being a pretty busy sector. I got my own stuff going on. So it's like, it's more beneficial for you to be on the frequency for the sector airspace that you're in. It's more beneficial for you and us, because that's the airspace that they're looking at. And we're, at the higher altitude sector, I'm looking at the higher altitude stuff. So,
Thank you.
Yep, sir.
Do you have any recommendations on optimal times to go out and practice this for approaches, like what days, what times? Assuming it's good weather. But,
It's just, it just varies so much. It just varies so much. 3 in the morning. I've had that happen a lot of times. It says your battery's running low, FYI. I don't know if we're going to use it anymore.
So to fly, to pick up an IFR out of Lincoln to fly somewhere, what's the best procedure?
So for us, give me 1 second. I was going to show you what flight progress strips look like on our end here. I have no idea whose website this is, but this is actually what they look like. So this is, these are old. Cactus, wow. These are old. Okay, so the flight progress, the departure strips kind of look like this on our side. We don't get the barcode. That's like LAX had those, and it would keep track of like departure times. But they look like this. So this is your departure airport. This is like a departure procedure transition, and then your route of flight. This is like kind of this little slash is kind of the truncated route of flight. You can see this one gives the whole thing. Right here is your requested final altitude, proposed departure time, squawk code, type aircraft. This is kind of like an internal computer identification number. So from Lincoln, if you want to pick up IFR, I don't care whether you do it on the ground or in the air. It doesn't really matter to us. I will tell you this: Lincoln is an uncontrolled airport. If there are other IFR aircraft inbound or outbound or VFR practice approaches, we are required to give VFR practice approaches at NorCal TRACON IFR separation. So if there is a Skyhawk on an 8-mile final and you're flying a jet, you may be told to hold, because we can't guarantee that we are going to be, those aircraft are going to be separated. So the way we treat it, for shorthand, we say 1 in, 1 out. So if you wanted to pick it up off the ground, that's totally fine. And what I really like to do is, if I can, and Lincoln's an easy one, I'll give you just cleared as filed almost always, unless your flight plan's kind of jacked up, but does it hardly ever happen. Cleared as filed, controllers love to do it. If I assign you the ODP, now I'm responsible for ensuring that you fly the ODP right. And if I see that you're off the ODP, I need to start doing all these traffic alert, low altitude alert, whatever it might be procedures. If I just say cleared as filed, and let's just say you did, I had one last night and they were going out to the east. They were going like Lincoln, Dragon, somewhere out to the east, right? It's just however you want to get from Lincoln to Dragon. You can fly the ODP, you can do whatever you want to do, it's up to you. And then I'll assign you an altitude. That altitude is always going to comply with the minimum vectoring altitude for that segment of airspace, because you're not yet on an established route, so I have to use minimum vectoring altitude. And so if you pick it up off the ground, totally fine. If you pick it up in the air, it's totally fine. If you're going to go, it just kind of going back to what I said before, you may get the point where you may be, if you're off of Lincoln and you start flying southbound looking for an IFR clearance, you may get that frequency change to 27.4 if you're on the wrong frequency. For us, it doesn't really matter. If you've been doing air traffic control for even like 3 minutes, these IFR clearances are super easy for us. and they shouldn't be any kind of a problem. So probably what it's going to look like is you're going to call me up and I'm going to say squawk this, and then that gives me I can radar identify you now, and then cleared to Dallas, when able, direct, whatever, and climb and maintain. I'll give you the top of my airspace, 9er if I'm working the low altitude sector, 19 if I'm working the high altitude, or all of the above, and then it's pretty simple from there.
You're gonna expect further climb.
So climb and maintain whatever I can do, and then expect this. And then I already gave you the squawk code. You're already on the right frequency. None of the other information really matters. If these things in between the pluses are what's called preferred departure routes. So like this aircraft filed the Ches 2, but the system, for whatever, maybe it's configuration or whatever, it didn't like it. So it says, nope, we want them on this route until they get to Villa. And then I'm willing to bet, we don't see it on here right now, but I'm willing to bet Villa is somewhere in their filed flight plan. We always, if we get these on our side, we can do what's called a full route on our computer that keeps track of these. And it'll show us the whole flight plan. It's kind of in a different format, but it shows us the whole flight plan. And that way we can verify that Villa will tie into their filed flight plan. So we can say, hey, this is the way for whatever configuration that we're on right now to depart, and then Villa, and assuming it ties into their flight plan, then as filed is what you'll hear. Cleared as filed is if I don't have any changes for you. So if it's like this one, cleared as filed, you would assign the departure procedure, but let's say the departure procedure wasn't there, like at Lincoln, the guy off Lincoln to Dragon or whatever, cleared as filed. I don't care how you get to Dragon, and I'm going to assign you an altitude at or above the minimum vectoring altitude. And if I needed the ODP for separation, I would assign it. And there's no other departure procedure off Lincoln. Am I correct? Yeah. So the 7110.65, if you pull it up, it only says of uncontrolled airports that you don't have to assign a departure procedure unless it's needed for separation.
Just for the VFR pilots, ODP is an obstacle departure procedure that lays out a route to fly to avoid hitting obstacles.
Yeah, so
If you're gonna pick up your clearance in the air, then you gotta fly the ODP until you got your clearance, right?
No, you can fly VFR.
no.
Oh, okay, VFR, okay.
Yeah, you're just VFR to IFR at that point. So anything before I say cleared, you're VFR.
Is there a
So
better
if you-
altitude to climb to before you call for an IFR pickup?
78.
Yeah, so if you're right off Lincoln Airport, you'll probably be able to get your clearance pretty fast because the MVA is, no higher than 2,500 or whatever. But if you're like out over Auburn at 4, then I'm not going to be able to give you the clearance right away unless you say you can maintain your own terrain obstruction avoidance. It's almost always a yes when we ask that question. And then as soon as you tell me yes, I'm giving you the clearance. But I'll also throw in something like when able, direct Palisades VOR. So I'm giving you the option of, hey, if you need to turn or do whatever, I'm giving you the option when able Palisades. So some of the stuff we say is very intentional. Like if you're 1,000 feet below the MVA, but you say you can maintain and we'll always say through an altitude. So the phraseology kind of goes like this. You call me in a 5,000 foot MVA and you're at 4,500 feet. So-and-so, can you maintain your own terrain and obstruction avoidance through 5,000? If you're coming up on another higher altitude, I might give you that one too, 7,000. Yeah, affirmative. Cool, cleared. When able, go to this. So now I'm still giving you some leeway to maneuver if you need to. And when able, now I'm giving you the fix on your filed plan. But that's one way that we will do the clearances in the air. And it's almost always easier for us to do it that way. Oh, the other option is for me to be like, maintain VFR, expect your clearance leaving 7,000. Now I got to remember to go back to you. In the data block looks like your IFR. So there's in the data blocks we have like a little kind of star looking thing. That's a VFR data block. The lack of a star is an IFR data block. And so if I'm busy and I don't remember to get back to you, then now you're chugging along, you're going to stop it, assuming you have an aircraft that can climb this I-17.5 or 17, most people like 17.5, but 999 technically, and you can cruise along there, and then center's going to be like, what the heck's going on with this guy? Oh, I didn't give him his clearance. So, and then if you get it off of the ground from us, the only thing that's interesting is, so what we're doing on our end, it's just a little bit of additional coordination, but it's not that big of a deal. I'll pull this map back up again. Any map will do. So if you're departing Lincoln and we give you cleared as filed, doesn't matter where you're going, or well, let's say you're going southeast. So what I'll do is, because you're going southeast, I'm probably going to assign this frequency over here, 27.4. What I do if I'm working clearance delivery is I go over and I ask this Elkhorn Buttes controller, hey, can you block it for departure off of Lincoln? They're going to be southeast bound, climbing to 3. And they say yes. And then I go to the Expo controller and I say, hey, Elkhorn's blocking. So that means they're going to be anything that they have out here that's IFR is going to be 4,000 or above. They're blocking, someone requests release up to 3. And then they say either hold or released. And then I go back and I'll pick up the phone that you guys called on and I'll say, release for departure, clearance void if not off within 5 minutes. If you're not off within 5 minutes, advise within whatever minutes what we're supposed to do. And so like Lincoln is an interesting one because it involves multiple sectors. If you're going northbound, I would ask, especially I think the ODP makes a right turn to Marysville. Am I right there? I can't remember. I think it makes a right turn to Marysville, but it gets within 1.5 miles of Expo's airspace. So what I would do is I would say, hey, can you, so now I would do the inverse. I would go to Expo and I would say, hey, can you block for Lincoln departure northbound? But they're just cleared as filed or via or on the ODP, and they would block up to 3,000 probably, and then I would get the release from Elkhorn, and it'd be good. Now, again, if we have anybody on final or whatever, then you're going to get a hold. No matter which direction you're going, if I'm turning, this is the McClellan final right here. If I've got IFR traffic out here for McClellan, you're probably going to get a hold because they're in the way. If I've got an Auburn, Sitsu, the initial approach fix for the Auburn RNAV is right here, and that altitude is at 3,000. If I have somebody doing the procedure turn at Sitsu or whatever, you might get a hold. So it's just, it doesn't matter to us whether you pick up the IFR clearance in the air or on the ground. It's just, I'm telling you, there's all kinds of different stuff where you might get a hold on the ground. And we're not doing it for controller amusement. We're doing it because there's traffic out there. So does that answer the question correctly?
So one thing that happens with IFR flight plan, submitting it online through Leidos is you'll get a text message saying your flight plan has been amended. Do you accept the amendment? And then when you get over the phone, cleared as filed, does that mean you got filed and then as amended and you accepted the amendment? Or did you guys even know that was happening?
No, so the one that I showed you that looked like it had no pluses on it, to us, that looks like it's the way you filed. So if you ever, here's my advice for that one. If you think anything's weird, ask for a full route clearance. It's like, hey, can I get a full route clearance? I don't know when you guys do Leidos' flight service, right? Yes. Yeah, so when if they do some amended flight plan or something like that, I don't really know about it. So the way that it looks to us is if it doesn't have those pluses, it looks to us that's the way that you filed. So if you get cleared as filed and then there's some confusion because Leidos told you something different, ask for a full route clearance. But it's to us it looks only one way, unless we see those pluses, and then I'm pretty sure that you guys don't have that information. We're giving you something different.
It seems to mostly happen when you file your initial fix is something really far away, Intel or something, and it'll come back and add an intermediate fix like Frogo or something like that.
It needs a coordination fix in order to do the handoff.
Yeah,
so that's the
yep.
question. So what should we use as an initial departure fix as a kind of maximum distance for us? Because if you've got GPS, you could make it 500 miles away.
Won't be in the NorCal airspace.
Yeah, I genuinely I have no idea. Like so I'll tell you this: the computer will automate what it needs. As far as the flight data computer will automate what it needs. Now, like Intel going to Fresno is a good example, right? If you are filed 19 or below, it's going to give you one route. If you are filed above 19, 20 and above, you are going to get a completely separate route. So and it takes type aircraft into consideration. So if you're flying a Pilatus, you might get a different route than if you're flying a Citation. So it's just totally case dependent, and I don't really know what to say to that. Maybe somewhere within NorCal TRACON's airspace. The interesting clearances that you guys get is like when we say via something like via Marysville VOR. I feel like sometimes there's some confusion. The reason we might be doing that is like, let's say you are off of Grass Valley, right? And you're filed for somewhere east. We want to keep you until we can get you climbing and radar identified. We both want to keep you out of Oakland Center's airspace to the maximum extent possible, and we want to get you away from the terrain. So I'm not just going to give you like via Palisades and climbing to 13. I have no idea between here and here when I'm going to get radar on you and when I'm going to be able to radar identify you. So we're going to give you something that keeps you in our airspace and away from traffic, because there's traffic descending down here to as low as 12. So if I give you via Palisades to 13, it's just a bad clearance for everybody, because who knows when you're going to get radar identified? Who knows if the radios are acting up? Now you're almost exclusively in Center's airspace, but you're on my frequency because Center doesn't want to talk to you. So yeah, so you'll get something like via Marysville off Grass Valley, right? Well, when I say via Marysville, however you want to do it, if you want to fly the ODP, if you want to do something else, if you want to just depart and turn left, it doesn't matter to us. But we're always going to assign you an altitude that's at or above the minimum vectoring altitude. So the actual lateral guidance, when we say via, gives you guys a little bit more leeway. This is specifically for IFR stuff. Now, I don't know what fix you should file for off of what airport to get the best routing. There's like a billion if this then that's, like the computer is like so much more. I've been doing it for a long time and I'm just like, oh, that's a weird route. Just the other day, oh, that's a weird route. I don't know why that happened. Oh, it's because it's a Pilatus. Oh, all right. So yeah. We've got a couple different questions.
Go ahead.
This is an ATC question. In a different seminar, I remember the talking points where there's only 3 types of ATC you'll talk to: the tower and ground, TRACON, and center. And with respect to TRACON, it's always an approach and control. And please be specific when you talk to TRACON. If you just took off out of the airport, you want, for example, NorCal Departure. If you're coming in from somewhere, you want the approach part, NorCal Approach, and it makes a difference. Is it because you can hit that magic button on the top left if you didn't quite hear the guy and you look for the guy that's high, or you look for the approach?
It doesn't matter. It's total semantics. Like I'll say on, like for instance, some people will say, like if they're working this low altitude sector expo, because you're doing departures off Sacramento International and Mather and McClellan and Executive, but you're also running all these arrivals too. So you're doing approach and departure. So like I'll say NorCal Approach, but like and then when, let's say you're climbing up above my airspace, you're going above 9. Some people will say contact departure on this frequency. Well, that higher altitude sector, yeah, a lot of what they do is departure, but they also work these arrivals that come in too. So it's just total semantics. Like honestly, it's just like but like the airliners off of Sacramento or off of like San Francisco, they'll say NorCal Departures. You know, they're just used to it. I don't know if it's a requirement or not, to be honest with you, but I'm not going to say anything to anybody. Yeah.
Just call them NorCal, it's fine. NorCal?
Yeah, NorCal is fine. Yeah, NorCal Approach, yeah.
Back here, go ahead.
Do you discourage or do you accept pop-ups, IFR clearances?
No, we don't discourage those at all.
It doesn't make the workload like, oh shoot, where'd this guy go?
The thing that makes our workload is if you don't have anything filed.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay,
That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying you're all of a sudden the weather just, you weren't expecting this, you haven't filed. But you see a bar and say, hey, I need a pop-up, or could I get a pop-up? Here's where it gets complicated is I can very easily give you what we call internally a local IFR clearance. So what I do is I do
I type in your call sign, I type in some destination for you that needs to be within NorCal TRACON's airspace, and your type aircraft, and then I hit this little button on the keyboard that's IFR button, and it gives you an IFR beacon code, so like 46 something. And that beacon code enables what's called MSAW processing. So it's going to give you all those minimum vectoring altitudes and stuff that I showed earlier. It's going to give you, if you get too low, it's going to give you what's called a low altitude alert or an MSAW alert on our end. And if you are IFR, you have to have a beacon code that will enable processing. All those other VFR beacon codes that I was talking about, it automatically disables MSAW processing, so you're not getting any low altitude alerts or anything like that from us, because that's, unless we did something stupid and assigned you an altitude at or below the MVA and tried to drive you into the mountains, which you should be like, hey, this is wrong, then the IFR terrain and obstruction avoidance, unless we ask you, is on us. So I'm kind of getting into the weeds, but here's the way it would work, is if you wanted to go from, let's say, Lincoln, and now you needed a pop-up, but you're going all the way to Montgomery Field, it's hard for us. So I'm probably going to get, what I'm going to do is I'm like, hey, this guy needs an IFR clearance. So I'm going to give him, I can type in a local IFR code, and I can give you an IFR clearance immediately, assuming you're at or above the minimum vectoring altitude, or you can maintain your own terrain obstruction avoidance. And you're gonna get like cleared short. You're gonna get cleared to like Linden, right? And it's all workload permitting. So it's all like, hey, I like, especially if you tell me with some urgency, hey, I need an IFR clearance right now. Cool, I can get you local IFR code, and I can clear you short. But like, I don't know what your route of flight to Montgomery is. It's so far away. So like, you may want to, you may want to go down over Oceanside, then do that, and then do this. I don't know any of that, and I don't have any way of typing that in my little keyboard that I showed you guys earlier. So, but what I can do is I can get you a local IFR code, and I can say, cleared to the Linden VOR, flight present heading, climb and maintain, whatever, 5,000 or whatnot. And then what I would do is I would probably tell you to contact flight service or for flight or whatever, however you guys do it, in actual file a IFR flight plan. You'll tell me you did that. Now I'm looking for it on our other computer that prints out those flight plans. And once I see it, I'll discontinue the use of that first code that I gave you, and I'll put you on the other code. And then I'll re-clear you to, let's just say, Montgomery or something like that.
When I was based out of SoCal, we basically do that a lot to get out of the green layers.
So you were doing a VFR on top then?
That, or just I do and a lot of it was with the tower too, so I'd ask the tower probably, obviously.
Yeah.
Being an uncontrolled, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, so internally we kind of have two different versions of VFR on top, and so there is like, I'm on an IFR, and you guys may be familiar with this too, but if you're on an IFR flight plan, like long distance, and you just want to be VFR on top, but stay on that IFR flight plan and continue along your whole route of flight, now you're picking a VFR altitude or whatever. That's one way of doing it. But then we also have like, we also have what's called local on tops. That's what we call them. I don't know if there's any terminology for you guys. And those are the ones that's just like, hey, I'm an executive. I know the fog layer is just this little rinky-dink thing. I'm going to do IFR through that fog layer and cancel above it and just be VFR. And so those are what we call local IFR. So I would clear you like to the SAC VORTAC. And then I do that. You may have heard it before. It's like that climb to and report reaching VFR on top, if not on top by 3,000, maintain. So it's all that stuff. And then we expect you to cancel IFR on top of that. And then at that point, you just transition to a VFR flight plan. Those are super easy to do, but they're not very common. I'm very familiar with them because I've practiced with them a bunch, but not everybody might know what you're looking for. So you can be specific and say, like, I'm looking for a local VFR, or if you want more of a long range IFR, like you can just say something like, can I get an IFR clearance right now to climb through these clouds, and then I'll file something when I can, and then you're probably going to get cleared short. The controller workforce is just as diverse as the pilot workforce. Not everybody's going to handle it the same. I'm the type of guy that will help as much as I possibly can. There are some people that are just like, nope, go file a flight plan. They're allowed to do that, but if you're encountering weather difficulty, then you can always say, I need this clearance right now. So, and the CFI might know a little bit more about that too, because.
Well, I was just going to say it's noon. I know Casey has to leave. We don't want to keep past his time. Stick around. We can still talk for a while, anybody want to talk among yourselves, whatever, but we're going to show this is done. We sure appreciate Casey coming out. That's a huge coup for our chapter to get the controller to come out and talk to us, so we appreciate that. And we appreciate everybody coming out this morning. I hope this was useful for everybody, and we'll see you next time.